Our lecture topic is Introduction to Digital Channels. What are we going to do in this lecture? We are going to look at the evolution of digital channels, and then we are going to study the latest trends and what are the main digital marketing channels. We'll also have a discussion about what are some of the challenges or the key implications of these trends and the channels going forward in 2023. Okay. So when we talk about the digital channels, so there was this reading that was, your reading for this week, and it's a pretty long reading, but I'm going to talk about that reading. And from this particular article, you should read about the 3 eras of internet evolution, which I'm also going to talk about here today. So this article covers a period of 2000 to 2015. Now, and it kind of talks about how the, the different eras of internet have shaped up. So why is it important to understand the evolution of the digital channels? Because it will help you appreciate how technology is shaping the markets, how that technology is shaping the market, and then the changes in the markets and the marketing tools that the marketeers are applying, how that is changing the consumer behavior. So it's an entire circular loop because technology affects the way promotions are done, for example, that affects the consumer behavior, and that further is then brought into the feedback loop by the marketeers to influence their behavior. So when we talk about evolution, we look at the first era, the period between 2000 to 2004. That was the time when internet first came into existence, and it did come, of course, a little before, but that was a time when actually it was available to consumers to use. What did we have at that point of time when the internet was launched? We had the brick and mortar channel, which is the actual store, the physical store where you go and purchase. Other than that, it was the internet where you had websites. So companies had set up their websites. They provided information about their products, and you could quiz the companies to make purchases. There were just a handful, very few websites which facilitated purchases of products. For example, Amazon, and another one was Barnes and Noble. So I'm not sure if many of you have heard that, but these are some of the websites that first started around that time. So the whole idea of these websites was to essentially provide information about the products that, those brands or the companies were selling. And the advantage of that was that consumers started gleaning that information, and they started absorbing and studying that information prior to going to the stores and making the purchase, or prior to making the purchase online. Now, the way that consumers used that information was, first of all, to enrich their personal lives, So it was like there was so much information content suddenly available that it became, the information became a fodder for discussion amongst private groups. The second thing was it also created a choice overload. Now, when suddenly you are, when you go to the store, there's only this many number of options that you're able to try because you're constrained by your time and you're constrained by your budget. But online, when you're searching for information, you somehow lose track of time if you really get interested in reading about the products. And there are so many products that you have to you can possibly read and get the information that it becomes information overload and choice overload. And that is exactly what was happening during this particular time as technology was improving and more companies, brands were jumping online to create, their presence. And At that point of time, the products that were being sold online were what we call as digital products. So there were two types of products, digital and non-digital products. So digital products were those where you don't really have to touch or feel them to be able to buy them. So for example, books, CDs, these were some of the categories where you can just read information about them online and you can purchase them online. But think about the non-digital product, which have attributes where you have to touch and feel before you buy. So can you tell me some examples of those type of products? So clothes is one category where you have to go try out the products in store before you actually buy them because you have to see the fitting of the vegetables and fruits. The makeup products, groceries, clothes, these are some of the categories definitely that you would have to try in the store. Interestingly, at that point of time, there was information about durable products also, like, for example, used cars. So there was a lot of information about cars and new cars as well as used cars. So that led to another problem, which was called product uncertainty. So if you are searching, let's say an individual seller has advertised his used car on a website, let's say eBay, there is a high chance that he's probably hiding the defects of that car and not disclosing them. So the chance of buying a lemon is very high. So you just look at the car, you go there and you drive the car, but you have no other information other than what the individual seller is telling you. So the chances of buying lemons due to the product uncertainty of items available online was pretty high because all sorts of sellers, just as a lot of products came into the market, a lot of sellers also came into the market. So these were the two issues that became prominent during this time. So 2005 to 2010 was the second era when more technological development happened, and the web online chat or the online channel became, more sophisticated, and we saw the emergence of search engines to reduce the consumer's information overload because there were so many brands competing in the online space. So to help solve the problem of finding the information that consumers want, we saw the emergence of Google, Bing, and other online search engines like AOL, which doesn't exist anymore. I don't think I've never heard about it. It could not keep up with the competition. However, the basic idea was for these search engines was to help consumers find the right information. So the idea of, search engine ranking pages came up, and online advertising, brands started advertising their products so that they come on top in the Google search engine results pages, as well as the organic links. But at that point of time, the online advertising was relatively muted, and the consumers relied more on organic links that Google was pulling up for the consumers. And it was, observed that consumers went as far down as up to 10 links to search for products. We also saw the emergence of social media. So because there was so much information available online, consumers started talking about products on social media. It became a very popular medium of chats among your networks, and people were putting reviews. It was easier to share the information. If I bought the product, it was easy to, share it with my friends and my group, and whether or not to recommend the product or even identify what was really working well with the product and what was not. So for consumers, they were able to enrich each other's, purchases by providing this word of mouth information. And for the companies, social media became a very, fertile mining ground to collect marketing intelligence. So they were collecting all this information as to what the consumers are talking about, positive, negative, what brands, what are they talking about our brand. And all that information was mined and then brought into the feedback loop to improve the products, right? So social media, in the sense, benefited both the consumers and the marketeers. And this period also saw an increase in database marketing. So because a lot of, when you are online, you are leaving a footprint behind every time you visit a website. Now, at that point of time, the footprint was in the form of cookies. Those are little codes which track where the consumer is coming from, the information about, like, for example, what type of email IDs are you coming from, which location are you coming from. So at that point of time, it was still, in the works. So marketeers were able to obtain a limited amount of information about consumers through cookies. But for example, if you have those subscription pages and you're leaving your information, all that was used to store the information about consumers in the form of databases. So the firms found this new medium of contacting the consumers through database marketing. And so 2005 to 2010 was a period where database marketing was a really hot area for marketers to reach out to consumers. So what happened during this time was, having discussed this channel, the search engine, social media, and emails, some of the websites, they also, evolved in certain ways. So for example, Amazon started employing recommendation agents. So recommendation agents are, for example, if you buy a shampoo on Amazon, what are you going to see just before the checkout once you have put shampoo in the cart? What is it that you're likely to see? The price, reviews, all this is pulled up by the recommendation agent, which is a software which is running in the background of Amazon website. It is pulling the information from what the other consumers have purchased. It is mining that data and giving you the recommendation that people who purchase shampoo also purchased this. And they also tell you this is the brand, and then you can look up the review, etc. So this is just, the idea is to get the consumers to make, the idea was to get the consumers to make faster decisions, and also, kind of engage in impulse purchases. So you actually went there to buy a shampoo, but you end up buying a combo because you think it's a great deal, right? Even though you may not really require that, conditioner or whatever other complementary product. But that was the whole idea, that recommendation agents helped to simplify the consumer's shopping, process. The second was comparison matrices. So there was so much choice, so many brands at that point of time, although most of them were, like very well-known brands, but there was a lot of brand competition in the online space. So we saw the emergence of websites which were called as the comparison websites or comparison matrices. So in which industry do you see comparison websites quite a lot? Insurance industry, tech industry, real estate, finance, car industries, right? Hotels. So Trivago, etc. These are some of the websites, Flight Center, Skyscanner. Flights and hotels have been, in this space for a very long time. So we've recently seen the emergence of some, for example, finance, car industry in the recent few years, real estate, insurance in the recent few years. So, but flights and hospitality, these have been around for a very, very long time. But the idea of all of these comparison matrices is the same. That is, like one of you mentioned, to provide a comparison information about, the star ratings, the review ratings, the price, the deals, if any, that are available, etc. So the idea of comparison matrices is to, again, help consumers solve complex problems where information processing a higher amount of information processing is required. So the consequence of all these developments was that consumers could evaluate higher quality alternatives by looking at the first few top links on search engines. The search costs reduced because now they have to make less effort to find the right products. They could make better choices. So the quality of decision making improved. And also, price competition increased because of the comparison matrices. So consumers were able to make better decisions. They were able to get better value out of whatever they were after for purchases. Non-price-based competition also increased. Non-price-based outcomes like customized emails. So as I mentioned, database marketing was the marketing of this era, right? The other key insight you have to remember is during this particular period from 2005 to 2010, the power dynamics also shifted. What do I mean when I say that? It essentially means that earlier, prior to this period, the marketeers were in control of what messages they were pushing towards the buyers. And buyers, simply would, for example, take these marketing messages through catalogs, through TV, through advertising in print, and then they would go to the stores and buy the products. But with social media, it just turned around, it flipped. Because consumers were now sharing so much information, if a brand was really not up to the expectations, the negative reviews on that brand could really, bring the brand down in terms of competition. So the marketeers, the whole idea of marketing actually shifted from pushing the messages to drawing the consumers in, right? That is, push marketing changed towards pull marketing. So, and that pull marketing is only becoming more and more stronger over the years and over time. So yeah, so these were the main insights, or these are the key insights. So power dynamics shifted, better decision making because of those tools, and the consumers became stronger in the market. All right, now in the period of 2011 to 2015, that is the third era, that saw the development of the mobile internet. So we had just two channels earlier, the physical store channel and the web channel, that is the online channel. And now we had a third channel, which was the mobile internet. And so the internet channel now evolved into a digital channel because of the arrival of the mobile internet. Now, together, the two could be easily classified because mobile browsers and online or web browsers had the same functionality. They had the same three micro channels of social media, search engines, and emails. So consumers had access to greater amount of information over time because consumers were on multiple devices. It saw the evolution of social media in a big way. So earlier, it was word of mouth information about products. Now that changed to more formalized system of product reviews. So for example, there were companies that came into existence which were actually collecting, these were independent third-party websites which were collecting reviews about products from consumers and giving them incentives to write these reviews. And the consumers were not only giving a descriptive account of how the product performed, but they were also giving online star ratings. So that became really powerful information for consumers to make decisions because now they could see both the rating as well as the description to get a more richer idea of whether or not to buy and what to buy. So what are some of the product review websites that you have seen or that you consult before you buy a product? But I'm talking about productreviews.com because it's an independent third-party website. So whether you are purchasing a product from Amazon or directly from a company website, the consumers, they tend to go to this website and provide reviews. So it has high credibility and they are supposedly independent of the brand's influence on consumers or brand incentives to consumers to put their ratings. All right. So the other development here was we saw the rise of emergence of influencers. So influencers, have are individuals who have disproportionately high number of followers. So they are capable of, leading the consumers into a certain direction as to buy or not to buy the products because of the amount of information that they share. So this period, the new thing that happened here was the emergence of influencers and more formalized rating systems. So what were the outcomes? The outcomes was that consumers stood to gain more value from social media because now not only were they collecting information, they were also getting a lot of rich information to make product decisions. And individual or online word of mouth became a source of individual expression. So, everyone from individual consumer who was just, the average Joe to a celebrity, everyone was putting their experiences out there. So if you get time, go onto the internet and look up a video called United Broke My Guitar. So this was a famous celebrity. I'm forgetting his name. He was a singer. He was carrying his guitar in United and he was going for a show. But the way that the airline handled his guitar, it broke. And he voiced his frustration by making a video, a song on United Broke My Guitar. And that became viral. I mean, people just went crazy looking at that. And United's, shares dropped, and people were like really voicing their opinions about the poor quality of the airline onto the social media. So if you get a chance, take a look at that video. It's pretty funny. Okay, so moving on. Now let us, having looked at the evolution of digital channels, how technology has developed, how channels have developed and emerged, and how that has changed the behavior of the consumers. So consumers have essentially are now sitting in a seat of power. But having said that, every year, because 2015 onwards, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, that is IoT technology, came into existence. So how that is driving the market. So over time, I've been tracking these trends over time. So let's take a quick look at these trends starting from 2017. So we can call this as the fourth era of the internet. So that specifically deals with digital trends. So AI and machine learning became big during this time, and that led to more and more of, marketing automation. So marketing automation is, all these softwares which are used to manage the consumers. So for example, you have a software in the market which is called Salesforce. It's a CRM, customer relationship management software, which coordinates the entire schedule for the company, when to send an email to a consumer, how many emails, what promotions, what frequency, etc., etc. So that is a CRM software. There's another software which is called as a content management system. For example, Hootsuite, WordPress. So all these are used to schedule the content that will be posted on to your social media, websites, web pages of a company. And so that is called as a content management system. And the third is Google Ads, which are another marketing automation tool where you can bid on keywords and also set a timing on when your ads will be sent out and for how much frequency and how many times. So what is the reach, how many impressions you want to give for an ad to the consumers. So all these are automation tools. So automation became a big thing during this time because of the developments in AI and machine learning. Social media marketing continued to evolve, but predominantly it was AI and machine learning in 2017 to 2019. And then, as you all know, we were struck by the pandemic, and that again had a great impact on how the marketers were reaching out to the consumers. So that period saw the emergence of social media marketing in a very, very strong way, greater emphasis on interactive content. So content became the king during this time. Any type of content, the marketeers just had to reach the consumers in some way. So we saw a greater number of virtual events and live interactions during this period. So did any of you happen to attend any virtual events during this time? I know that there were a lot of music festivals online. There were live interactions with the companies that were hosting those. So yeah, so there was a lot of, interaction via the social media and the live stream services. So in 2022, this trend continued. The live stream, the content became more simplified because again, it led too much, marketing on social media led to information overload. So suddenly, people were ignoring messages. And so it boiled down to bringing more simplified, easily observed content. Now, in 2022, we also observed more, buzzwords like metaverse. So Mark Zuckerberg was trying to kind of make Facebook more competitive. Facebook acquired Instagram, and he changed the company's name from Facebook to Metaverse. So Meta is the umbrella name, but has all these brands under. So I put up a video on Metaverse and NFTs, that is non-fungible tokens. In your own time, please do try and take a look at these, because these are the emerging markets of the future. And if you're an artist, you're in a creative field, you must understand the concept of non-fungible tokens. So it's a good idea. And Meta is also going to, at least Metaverse is trying to create an artificial, augmented reality, using augmented reality, virtual marketplaces. So that if it takes off, then it might just be the next big thing of the future. Crypto, a lot of us, I'm sure if you would know, or you personally would have invested in Bitcoins or Ethereums and must have made money out of it at some point in time, or you would know of people who have done that. So these are some of the technologies to, understand. And then continuing third-party data is being phased out because of Cambridge Analytica scandals and a lot of data breaches, etc. So we saw, during this time, European Union coming out with the GDPR norms and more stricter regulations about controlling consumers' data. So Google has kind of started phasing out the third parties cookie data. So till now, all of the marketers were collecting your data through cookies, but now that is going to change. So this is one of the challenges, how to collect the consumer's data directly. So which is what we call as the first party data. And during this time also, we saw the emergence of the concept of DEI, gender neutrality, accessibility. So these were some of the United Nations sustainable goals that they had set up for the economies to evolve. So DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion. So these are big forces that are shaping not only the marketing world, but the economies and as a whole. All right, so now moving to what are the trends in 2023. We just saw what happened before 2020, and then how the pandemic impacted the markets. The overall effect of the pandemic was that there was a shift. I'm sure you are not surprised. There was a shift from offline to online. So total online sales increased, but the overall consumer spending went down. So where do we go from here, given that this impact has come? So if we look at the trends or predicted trends for 2023, what does that say? Total experience. So that is the first trend driving that. So like I said, AI is going to drive a lot of, marketing trends, and also might influence consumer behaviors in lot of different ways. So one is total experience. So total experience, consumer privacy, creative, marketing technology will be closely assessed. Agile tactics will be ahead of the game. So marketing technologies are the technologies that I just mentioned to you, the customer relationship management softwares, the content management systems like WordPress. Those are all marketing technologies. Agile tactics, I have put up a video. Please take your time to watch that. In the workspaces, and I'm sure those of you who are already working in the companies would have noticed this, that in the workspaces, the companies are already resorting to the concept of agile tactics. What is it? It is essentially an idea that to improve productivity, you cannot just rely on to and fro emails. You have to be able to, use instant, you have to be able to use your hours, your time in such a way that you can engage in more efficient decision-making. So for example, Agile has this concept of stand-up meetings at the start of the day. So instead of, exchanging emails that this is what I did yesterday, the entire team gathers together and they have the stand-up meeting for about 10 minutes where they all stand up and all the team members say, okay, this is what I did, this is what I did, this is what I did. And the entire team as a whole. So there is another concept called the product owner. Product owner is the manager or the executive who's leading a project. So it is an easier way for the product owner to assess that, all right, if we were not able to achieve what we had desired yesterday, what are the changes that we need to make today? So the whole idea is to bring more efficiency into the process of working and quicker decision making. Associated with Agile is also the concept of Scrum. And you will see a lot of jobs related to Scrum Master. So I would say take a look at videos related to Scrum. So Scrum is related to team collaboration work. All these are softwares. There are softwares to facilitate, these sort of workflows to improve, efficiency of working. Okay, so let's talk about total experience details. So when we talk about total experience means, let me change my pointer to a highlighter. Okay, so when I say total experience, I'm talking about the concept of omni-channel marketing. So we just discussed the evolution of channels. So evolution of channels, you saw that there were many different channels. So that concept, when those channels came into existence, the firms were marketing their products on each of the channels, and that was called as multi-channel marketing. That means I have a website where I'm selling the products, I have a store where I'm selling the products. But it soon has evolved into omni-channel marketing. How is that different? Well, for example, this is your website, and I will just call it as W. This is your mobile phone. And these are some buttons on your phone. You use the web browser, and you also have a storefront through which you are selling your products. So omni-channel marketing essentially means that wherever the customer is buying their product from, so whether it is on a website or it is through the mobile phone or through the store. So if you've bought a product through the website, you should be able to go to the store and return it. So there should be seamless connectivity between the two. Similarly, if you bought the product through your mobile browser, you should be able to go to the store and return the product. When it was the age of multi-channel marketing, the rules around product returns were very complicated. For example, if you bought a product online, you can return it only through postal services. You cannot go to the store and return it. So that created a bit of discord, as you can say, consumers' cognitive dissonance around the service practices of the firms. So the whole emphasis is changing from multi-channel to omni-channel marketing. So this is the marketing experience. It is the total experience. And I have not included other touch points. So for example, the firms are also sending you email messages, social media marketing. So all these things have to be very highly, connected. So that is the total experience. So the emphasis is now on total experience. There is going to be a lot of technology, a lot of challenges that are going to come forward. Technology is going to drive marketing in a big way. So one of the key implications of 2023 trends will be, and I'm going to voice this out to you, is first of all, technology has cut short the consumer behavior. So like I mentioned to you before, the marketing has changed from push marketing to pull marketing. Because of that, when consumers see an ad, now they don't really have to search for the products because they've already gotten information from social media, word of mouth. They're able to click on the ad and purchase the product directly, right? So that has cut down the length of the purchase journey that consumers undergo. So it's become more of a non-linear pattern of purchases. And so an important implication will be, how can the firms reach out to the consumers who cut short early in the purchase journey? So that'll be one key challenge. Second is search, social, share is the current trend that drives consumers' information search. So when I say search, social, and share, let me put that down over here. So one is the non-linear process of purchase that I talked about. And the other one is search, social, and share. So whatever the consumers are searching, they are taking word of mouth from social media, and then they are sharing about their purchases. So that has important implications for brands as far as omni-channel marketing is concerned. So, experiences have to be more, consumer experiences have to be more individualized, and they have to be more optimized. So these are the key takeaways from here. And so in the digital marketing or media channels, the main classification of the digital channels is into as search marketing, social media marketing, digital advertising, digital PR, digital partnerships, digital messaging. So we will see further classifications of these down the line in our future lectures. But for now, can you just think of digital PR, that is public relations? How do firms manage digital public relations? Does some example come to your mind? So Twitter is full of complaints. Many companies directly respond. So that is one way of managing, using social media to manage your digital PR. The other one is also using influencer marketing. So that's a great way of establishing your PR. Digital partnerships is the other one that you must be wondering about. Although we will discuss all these 6 forms in greater details in the future lectures, but digital partnership relates to affiliate marketing. So when you form partnerships with other third independent parties to sell your products. And this slide, the last slide, is just meant to show you why digital is important, because this is a very recent study that has come out, Marketing Budgets 2023. It looks at the data of 2022, and they find that the firms are shifting their online-only strategies to hybrid strategies, which means allocation of budgets, greater proportion to offline channels as well as digital channels. However, the broader implication is that the digital channels still claim 56% of the budgets, and that trend is going to continue. So this is why you are going to see a greater amount of spending on digital advertising, digital marketing, affiliate marketing, et cetera, across all of the 6 digital channels that I just talked about. So these are the key things. And here are a few terminologies that you can take a look in your own time. These are the current buzzwords that you will find useful. You come across them in your everyday work lives. A lot of those you already know. So I'm not going to spend too much time here. But let's do a final recap. The main things that arise from today's lecture We saw the evolution of the channels, and the current trends indicate that there will be a greater experience, a greater emphasis on consumers' experience. Privacy will be important, and why? We discussed that, right? So what does that mean? It means that online brand management is going to become important because the consumers' behavior has changed into a non-linear process and more of search, social, and share. So the implications of these trends is that still a greater amount of budgets will be allocated to digital marketing efforts. There is going to be a lot of technology, a lot of challenges that are going to come forward. Technology is going to drive marketing in a big way. So one of the key implications of 2020, this out to you is, first of all, technology has cut short the consumer behavior. So like I mentioned to you before, the marketing has changed from push marketing to pull marketing. Because of that, when consumers see an ad, now they don't really have to search for the products because they've already gotten information from social media, word of mouth. They're able to click on the ad and purchase the product directly, right? So that has cut down the length of the purchase journey that consumers undergo. So it's become more of a non-linear pattern of purchases. And so an important implication will be, how can the firms reach out to the consumers who cut short early in the purchase journey? So that'll be one key challenge. Second is search, social, share is the current trend that drives consumers' information search. So when I say search, social, and share, let me put that down over here. So one is the non-linear process of purchase that I talked about. And the other one is search, social, and share. So whatever the consumers are searching, they are taking word of mouth from social media, and then they are sharing about their purchases. So that has important implications for brands as far as omni-channel marketing is concerned. So, experiences have to be more, consumer experiences have to be more individualized, and they have to be more optimized. So these are the key takeaways from here. And so in the digital marketing or media channels, the main classification of the digital channels is into as search marketing, social media marketing, digital advertising, digital PR, digital partnerships, digital messaging. So we will see further classifications of these down the line in our future lectures. But for now, can you just think of digital PR, that is public relations? How do firms manage digital public relations? Does some example come to your mind? So Twitter is full of complaints. Many companies directly respond. So that is one way of managing, using social media to manage your digital PR. The other one is also using influencer marketing. So that's a great way of establishing your PR. Digital partnerships is the other one that you must be wondering about. Although we will discuss all these 6 forms in greater details in the future lectures, but digital partnership relates to affiliate marketing. So when you form partnerships with other third independent parties to sell your products. And this slide, the last slide, is just meant to show you why digital is important, because this is a very recent study that has come out, Marketing Budgets 2023. It looks at the data of 2022, and they find that the firms are shifting their online-only strategies to hybrid strategies, which means allocation of budgets, greater proportion to offline channels as well as digital channels. However, the broader implication is that the digital channels still claim 56% of the budgets, and that trend is going to continue. So this is why you are going to see a greater amount of spending on digital advertising, digital marketing, affiliate marketing, et cetera, across all of the 6 digital channels that I just talked about. So these are the key things. And here are a few terminologies that you can take a look in your own time. These are the current buzzwords that you will find useful. You come across them in your everyday work lives. A lot of those you already know. So I'm not going to spend too much time here, but let's do a final recap. The main things that arise from today's lecture are we saw the evolution of the channels, and the current trends indicate that there will be a greater experience, a greater emphasis on consumers' experience. Privacy will be important, and why we discussed that, right? So what does that mean? It means that online brand management is going to become important because the consumers' behavior has changed into a non-linear process and more of search, social, and share. So the implications of these trends is that still a greater amount of budgets will be allocated to digital marketing efforts.